All right. All right. Oh, I have an intro. It's been so long since I've done one of these.
I'm Jay Horton. I make movies that make money. This is how.
Oh, wrong intro. Oh well. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I am good. So today I have Sophia Cacciola and Michael J. Epstein, the filmmakers behind the Once and Future Smash, which I have a link for the trailer below. I would highly recommend checking it out. So first off, we'll get into what it is here in a minute, but no, you know what? Let's do what it is first. What is Once and Future Smash?
It's your turn to
No,
talk about it
you're
while
doing so good.
All right.
Yeah.
It's the story of the two guys who played the football cannibal slasher Smash Mouth in the 1970 film End Zone 2, and now 50 years later, we shot in 2020, 50 years after. They were at a convention, the Mad Monster Party in North Carolina, where there's going to be an announcement about the reboot of the End Zone series, and those two guys, are kind of vying for they want to be part of that, and we kind of explore the idea of Once and Future Smash is we both explore them as people and what kind of what's going on with them, and also a little bit of the history of the End Zone series because it's a really interesting series, and it was important and influential to a lot of people, but it kind of got lost for a number of reasons that we sort of get into in the doc. But yeah, I think that's the summary of it, right? I went roundabout. That was my bad version of it. I should have it down to like a really smooth pitch at this point. But
Right. Like elevator pitch wise, like if you're putting it out to somebody, like what is something you would compare it to? Or is there anything?
yeah, I mean, because we've been getting asked this a lot, and the doc that I've been coming up with to compare it with is something called Life After Flash. It's about Flash Gordon. It's this movie. I think Lisa Downs is the director. Really fantastic doc where they interview a bunch of people who are involved in Flash Gordon, and they talk about kind of the history of Flash Gordon, but also follow Sam Jones, who played Flash Gordon, and what has kind of happened to him since. So we're looking at him now and how he would admit, I'm not describing him as a failure or something, but he would admit that he kind of like made mistakes, and it led to him kind of losing his career and not really being successful in the way that he had hoped. And so I think there are a lot of parallels. We didn't have that in mind when we started. We didn't really know what we were making when we started. But I think now, as we were cutting it, we're like, oh yeah, this is kind of a good reference because it's really about the original film, and it's celebrating that film, and then it's also looking at the life of this person. It's almost two sides to it, I guess, or two intertwining contexts for the whole thing. So.
Right. One thing I think that would have been really easy working on a doc like this is some people would have took a more like exploitive route, like maybe poked fun a little bit at it. And I didn't get a sense of that at all. Like how important was that to you? And how did you like not do that?
I mean, I think that was a concern, especially when we were booking like the people who were inspired by End Zone 2 in their own careers, like our talking head subjects. That was like something we really had to explain to them. Like it's like a celebration of it, and it's like it's not gonna be mean in any way.
Right.
And then the convention really was just like fly on the wall. Like we were at Mad Monster Party, it was insanity, and we just tried to capture it as best we could in the moment.
I think part of it also is, the idea came, the reason we wanted to make this is we started seeing we're not really big fans of convention culture. Like we're just not that interested in it. It's not that we dislike it or anything. It's just not really for us. But I started to find that it was very interesting that like a lot of these actors who were in kind of major franchise films or other things had kind of put their careers aside and done whatever they've done with their lives, either by choice or by circumstance. And now they're coming back, 30, 40, 50 years later, and they're being celebrated at these conventions. There are all these new people who are like, I'm really excited to meet this person who's in a kind of obscure movie, like, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And a lot of younger people who are, sort of like in our age group, maybe, are actually going out and making movies and bringing those people in as actors in those movies. I mean, I know you may have a personal slant as well. I don't want to call you out.
Yeah. My introduction to that whole world was through Felissa Rose, who we cast in Craving, and absolutely. I knew that other filmmakers had been working with her of late, but I didn't realize just how involved the whole like convention circuit was and how like rabid some of those fans really are. Yeah, it's neat. It's fertile ground for a documentary.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started seeing that, and we were like, this is a really interesting, the story of these people is really interesting because they're not household names, but they're important to some people. They're very, very important to some people. And one of the interesting aspects is that there have been rivalries where like, I won't, call out specific people again, but I started reading stories about how like somebody wanted to get their movie poster signed by like the whole cast. And so there are all these conversations that were like, well, if you want to do that, you have to get this person before this other person because this person won't sign it if it's already been signed by this other one because they have like a rivalry or an issue with each other. Our friend Neil Jones, who does the Without Your Head podcast, actually had talked to me a bunch of times about two individuals who played the same character, similar kind of story to our movie, played the same character. And one was mad that the other one had been on his show and wasn't sure if they wanted to come on because the other one had been on and they were taking too much credit for the role and so on. So I thought, this is really like, this is an area where we could explore, we could kind of tell a story and explore. And Neil came on as a producer and was very involved in getting us access to the convention. the movie wouldn't have been made without Neil, but he was able to get us access to shoot at the convention. And they were very, very supportive. Evan McGarr at Mad Monster and everybody who runs that were great. They let us kind of just,
we ran wild.
Yeah, they let us have access to everything.
Wow.
And then Neil was also able to reach out because he's interviewed so many horror, sort of icons and these, especially this sort of category of people, this kind of person. And so he was able to reach out to all of his former guests and say, we're doing this story about End Zone 2. Do you have any knowledge of it or relationship with it or anything you want to talk about associated with it? And a whole bunch of people responded and wanted to be part of the movie and agreed to come and kind of tell their story. And some of them are like big fans of End Zone, and some of them are less fans, so not as much fans, but they had stories associated with it. So.
Right.
Yeah.
When you're doing, documentary, style filmmaking, and, you say you're working with, the two main guys, and you're not necessarily, I'd assume you're not, like crafting, fictitious performances, but how do you mold, a performance in a documentary? Like if you're looking for a certain thing.
Yeah. It's a great question. Well, I'm sorry, I'm dominating.
We talk all the time about how a documentary can never be fully objective because we're making decisions on what we put in it and what we exclude, and
that's the thing. We knew going in. We're like, it's not like I don't even know what truth is, right? There's really no such thing as truth. This is a little bit of a tangent, sorry, but I recently saw a film teacher, somebody who teaches film I know, was talking about playing Rashomon in their class. Mm-hmm. And the students, I don't know, it was broken into 2 days or something along those lines. And the students were like, oh, we can't wait to find out what really happened. And if you're familiar with Rashomon, it's like, and there's no, the whole point of the movie is that there's no truth ever. There's no such thing as truth. There's only like the experiences and perspectives of different individuals. And you can kind of like look at those things and try to find some commonality or reality in that. But like our perceptual systems are limited. We see, we understand different things. Whenever they've done the psych studies on like bystanders and eyewitnesses and everything, it's all very inaccurate. People's memories of events are very inaccurate. So we weren't really concerned. We're like, let's just tell a story that's interesting. Let's explore these guys and let's make sure that everything that we're doing conveys the emotion and the sort of metaphor of like what this experience is like, what this type of person is like, because we don't want it to be really about those guys. We want it to be about the type of experience and the type of life that those guys have.
Okay.
So in that regard, they were well aware. I think, as soon as you put a camera in front of a person, they're performing. They're already performing. And we certainly, we did a reality. We were involved. My sister was involved in a reality show, but we were there for the filming. And they filmed the real surprise event. It was a part of her wedding. It was a surprise that they were doing this dance thing, whatever. So they filmed the surprise event, and then got on the microphone after, and they're like, everybody was surprised at that point. Mm-hmm. And they got on the microphone after, and they're like all good reality, we're going to do this 2 more times now. Everybody pretend you're surprised.
Right.
So as with all like, you know, reality storytelling, you know, we do influence and shape it a little bit. But the goal is not to like tell the story that we are forcing necessarily, but to make sure that we're accurate, you know, we're conveying something of meaning.
Right. So it sounds very much like you guys were finding the story as you went along. You had a kernel of that. What was the original kernel? Like, what was the?
Well, we at Mad Monster, there was going to be this event, this panel where they were going to do the kind of reunion and announcement about the remake of the series. So we just we're like we'll follow these 2 guys and tell their story and kind of see where it goes with where this remake is going. And I won't spoil kind of what it gets wacky, but I won't spoil it at this point.
Right? Veers into some surrealist territories.
Yeah. And we weren't afraid of, you know, fantasy and surrealism being part of it. I think, you know, good docs, like, again, because if you really try to like say you're telling the truth, then you're more of a liar. You're almost more of a liar than if you just admit that you're not really quite telling the truth and that you're shaping it. And so I think we embraced that a little bit. And so we were like, well, we'll just, if we have to do some you know, we have some animated renderings of things that happen and some other.
I love the animated sequences.
Yeah. Our friend Josh Stifter did some of that animation. There's multiple different things, but he did the animations of those guys and some other stuff. So he was fantastic doing that. And I think it, you know, it helps
keep it interesting.
Tell the metaphor of the story. Give us what
and
the
stuff we
experience
weren't
is.
able to shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's also
right. Speaking of stuff you weren't able to shoot, was there any thought of, you know, like expanding more into the guys' personal lives, like visiting them at home or anything like that?
Yeah, you talked about that before, that we wanted it to be more objective, like an outsider on them, because we could have gone and interviewed them individually at the hotel or at their homes. And we just thought it was more interesting to look at it from the outside and get like all the information through the other people that had experiences with it.
Yeah, we never wanted them to tell their story directly, which I know is,
but you experience it, I think, in where they are today.
Yeah. But that is strange. Yeah, I think most docs, you know, you sit down and you have the just direct interview with the individuals, and we're like, you know, that's the reality TV format, right? Like something happens, then you interview the individuals. You're like, how did you feel about that thing? But we didn't want to do that. We wanted it to be like, you just witness the events, you see what happened, and then you interpret it however you want. Because again, we don't want it to be about those guys necessarily. We want it to be about that world and that thing. So yeah, so that was a deliberate decision to not have them ever like sitting privately, talking to camera, telling us their feelings. Like, and we have many other people doing that, and people who are on the peripheral. And their assistant, AJ,
he was awesome.
He's kind of the voice. I mean, he's a little bit like the voice of
Reason.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, he's a little bit audience surrogate.
Yeah, he is a little bit. Yeah, he's kind of like helping give us insight into areas where we thought we need a little additional insight. So we're like, AJ, you know what's going on kind of behind the scenes here? What's happening? But we didn't want those 2 guys to tell their own story, because I think it makes them less interesting. I think to have them sit down and be like, I'm sad about this, or I'm angry about this, or it just gives a little, like, we wanted that little bit of separation. I guess it's like I don't know.
I think just in like following them, because we did follow them to like their hotel rooms and to the bar and stuff, and just like very effectively film them doing their thing. And I think you get a lot of the emotion from just those scenes.
Yeah,
I think where their heads are at.
In theater, I guess they might call it like a Brechtian distance or something, like where there's like a separation. You don't really. It's kind of like an aloof look at the emotions and experience. We didn't want it directly conveyed. We wanted to kind of like allow you to.
I will say they are both very excited about the film, and so like they're very.
The energy of both of them was very, like, it was contagious. Like, cool. And I thought they had a really good chemistry together, and the assistant after acting as a buffer between them. I mean, you couldn't write that.
It's
they definitely funny. They showed up and they were both I think they had a lot of feelings towards each other, and I think throughout the film, like when they on the first filming days, it was definitely like there was a rivalry there, like a very strong you know, they dislike, I guess, of each other. And then, you know, through the course of the filming and the shoot, I think they've become friendly, you know, and they like chat on Facebook now. So, you know, I guess it brought them together in the end, you know, but it was a little dicey like the first 2 days, I think.
So you're performing a public service.
Yeah, that's right. But no, they're really great guys, and they haven't seen the movie yet, by the way, so they don't know what actually is in it. I mean, they know they were there for the they made it, but they don't know, you know, how it's been shaped and what the context is, and they don't know anything about the
well, all their scenes were filmed first, you know, like we shot at Man Monster Party in February of 2020, and so immediately the world shut down, and so like our plan was to go to other conventions and shoot more, and then that was obviously not what was happening.
Right.
And so we didn't actually start filming again for like at least a year.
Yeah.
Our editor, Aaron Brokus, like had the convention footage, and he like did like a assembly cut of everything that we had. And then, yeah, it took a long time to shape. So what they experienced was just, you know, like half the movie, you know, of what's ended up in the end, you know. So it changed a lot, I think, because of the pandemic and because of like our plans changed, but also just how it was shaped. Yeah.
So initially you were going to travel to like different conventions?
Not with those guys.
Right.
We were just going to go, we were planning to go to like Texas Frightmare, for example, that year, so that we could go do the interviews, because we were set up. We're like, well, let's go to a place where there's a ton of the people who are interested in being interviewed, and we can film those all at once. And that all didn't happen. So we had to like delay all the kind of, you know, talking head parts of it and everything. We did those. Some of those were done like right a few months ago, like 2 months ago. Yeah. Jesus. But it helped us make the story, because we knew, because you know, Aaron was really instrumental in making the film as well, because he took the kind of mess that we had from the convention and shaped it. You know, he said, okay, here's the structure that works kind of for this story, and then we were able to fill in, kind of like think about, well, oh yeah, well, you know what, nobody's going to understand this unless we find someone, not even just a talking head person, but like we have to find someone that explains kind of like this aspect of it or this aspect of it, and fill in those gaps. And so we were able, it helped to make the movie over that longer period of time, because we could kind of reconfigure. And I mean, I know you make docs, so you know, you're familiar with probably the process of like how to tell the story. You know, you have to find the narrative in the material, and then you're constantly moving stuff around to like make it interesting and manipulating it to make it interesting and dramatic and so on. So
yeah. So I guess I had the time frame a little bit mixed up. I was thinking you guys had actually started during the pandemic, but you actually started before. So let's go back to that. So it was pretty much your first like real full foray into documentary filmmaking, right? Like you've done some shorter form things, right?
I think, yeah.
We did it. I mean, we did like a bonus material. We did like a feature length like bonus materials doc on our Blood of the Tribids Blu-ray. Right. Yeah. That's pretty. I mean, it's very talking head heavy and structured, but it's kind of doc, but it's not. It's not like this. It's not like a storytelling.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, so that's some shorter form stuff, but yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So did you make a conscious decision, you know, to try something different besides, you know, a straight narrative? Was there a conscious like business choice, or was it just like, I would just want to try something different?
I think this is just the story that was around.
Every time we do a feature, it's completely different from all the other features we've done previous to that. And I think that keeps it interesting for us. Mm-hmm. And like just our own like humor and everything like always bleeds into everything we do. So I think there is like a commonality between them all, just in our personalities of like put themselves on the subject matter. But yeah, I don't know if it was like a conscious.
I think what actually happened was the opportunity just came up. It again,
it's always like the way we choose like what movie we're gonna do next. It's like what are our resources
right
at the moment, and our resources were like Neil and this convention and this whole event happening, and we knew Bill a little bit, and you know, and Neil knew Michael a little bit. So we're like, all right, well, let's get them to agree.
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of factors. Like obviously, we couldn't have done it without the convention. We couldn't have done it without the guys. So it's like when the idea came up, and the idea was in 2019, like it was mid 2019. We sort of knew about it, started forming a plan for it, and then once everybody agreed and like, you know, we got access to convention, we're like, okay, well, let's just do this. And we really thought like, oh, this will just be an easy movie that we'll just kind of like,
we
bang
thought
out
we
fast.
would 6 months and it'd be just done, you know.
Like,
so that was the plan. Yeah, I kind of went much bigger than that.
We thought we'd premiere like fall 2020, like the movie would be out, be done, and we can move on to like another narrative film. And instead, you know, pandemic really kind of
slowed us down.
Yeah. You know, you mentioned commonalities in your work, and one thing that really struck me on this is because, you know, it was a different type of format, completely different type of format from your last couple, but I really felt the humor, you know, the thematics. Like there is a lot of strong through lines between the work. It's very rare in indie filmmaking that you can point to a filmmaker that is doing different types of work and you can connect them. Like I could feel you. If I had not seen your name on it, if I just came across it, I'd be like, that was yours or somebody aping you.
Yeah, we give ourselves away, I think.
Well, I hope that's like a good thing.
It is a good, it is a good thing. I mean, I meant it as a compliment. Like
I'm just saying, like in general, like I hope that's a positive for people.
Yeah. Well, you know, something. So I want to think about it. Something that I struggle with in mine is I shift between so many different genres, and I don't necessarily have, you know, a singular voice through it, at least not a recognizable one. So like I feel like I'm always, every new project I'm rebuilding an audience. So like I feel like this, even though it's different, it's like it's similar enough. It's like I think the people that liked your other stuff will follow to this.
Yeah, we sort of hope that. I mean, that is the goal, right? Because I don't think, you know, as filmmakers, we're not like, we don't want to make just like a project and then have that sit out there. We're trying to build our reputation to get somewhere our careers with it, if there's such a thing. But
well, I think like in, you know, there's been times where like I think for just general audience, like our senses of humor, like in clickbait, for instance, I know it like turned off a lot of general audience to the film, like where they're like, why are they trying to be funny? You know, there should be a slasher and that's it. But I just think, you know, we've tried to make films without it. Like we tried to make clickbait as like a straight slasher without any humor, and it just like, you know,
I didn't know that. Was there like a
I mean, in the beginning we tried to minimize the humor.
Yeah,
and then
everything
it was
with
impossible.
Literally the toot strudels in that movie, which was like, it was literally just an art prop, like just to sit on the counter. Like it was not part of the narrative at all. And then it's just like the actors were having so much fun with it and we thought it was funny. And so like it became like a huge part of the movie, you know, so stuff like that where it's just like we're amusing ourselves and then it's like, you know, whether or not that works to the outside, it definitely worked for some people. Some people think it's hilarious and like love toot strudels, but you know, others are like, why are they trying to be funny? Like, they should stop. You know.
I know we've talked like you know, outside of.
But we fought a lot with the Once and Future Smash a little bit too, where like, you know, Michael and Aaron, our editor, kind of have a very silly little boy sense of humor sometimes, and then like I come in, I'm like strip out all these dumb jokes and all these like sound effects and stuff, and so it's like, you know, and obviously I have like a very dry sense of humor too, so just finding that middle ground between like me reeling them back and then reeling me back, like, it was definitely a little bit of a pull back and forth.
We definitely
we definitely went through a lot of stages.
We definitely had jokes that were like, I was like, you cannot take this joke out, like it does not work. I mean, and by jokes, you know, it's funny because what is a joke in this context, but like it's just how you present the material or how, you know, what you choose to include. There's a moment where like a chyron pops up late and the chyron like reveals something that's funny in the context of what's being said, and that's a joke. And Sophia's like, everybody's gonna think we like messed up in the timing of the chyron going up, and I'm like, no, it's very funny because like something is said and then this pops up.
It looks like a mistake.
So we, you know, those are the kinds of things that we debated. But no, I know that we've talked, you know, outside of a public world, we've talked about like the job of directors is like managing the tone and figuring out like what the hell the tone of any project is and trying to get like everybody who's involved to be in the same movie. And
I think we had some trouble with that too.
It's hard.
And some previous movies as well.
It's hard. Well, it's the hardest part of the job, really. And I think, you know, so clickbait, for example, I think it you know, we had something in our minds and then we just like, you have to just accept that when the cast and everybody involved is like going somewhere else, you just have to be like, well, we
I
can
know.
fight this.
And we love that kind of spontaneity too,
Yeah.
you know, that can happen on set. But
It's like we have a choice of like fighting against it and then coming out with something like that's never gonna work, or allowing, just being like, all right, this is the train.
steamrolling
This is the
into
train
it.
everybody is on. So I guess we better just ride this train and then hope that it's like it goes somewhere, it gets to a station that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, that steered a little bit different. That happens on every film. I think clickbait was more than others, but
Well, I
any
think
film it happens. It
I
happens.
think from the original version of what we were going to shoot versus what happened on set and what ended up in the edit, like I think that went the furthest of any of our narrative from like not having much like it had humor in the dialogue and stuff, but like in the actual presentation, it accelerated a lot.
Yeah, but maybe we didn't realize like how much the storytelling relied on the humor, and the actors realized it more, and like, so, you know, that's the thing too. It's like we don't always know. I mean, you know, we don't know anything.
We always say that there's like the 3 versions of the movie, and it's like what the screenplay is and what you shoot and then what's the edit. So, you know, it can change quite a bit. Yeah.
And you try to make it better at every stage, right? That's
right.
the goal.
I don't know. I think so.
Doesn't always work, but you try.
Yeah.
Right. I always say the most cardinal sin is just to be boring. Like I would rather do something interesting and take a swing than try to do something safe.
Yeah.
Although I've done the safe thing a few times, and it's almost always you're very disappointed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. Yeah, go ahead. We can.
I was gonna say another thing I noticed just from the outside. So clickbait, if I'm not mistaken, Sophia, you were credited as director on that.
I think we always like co-direct.
We're both.
Yeah, I think
Were you both? Okay, I'm sorry. I totally. But you mix and match sometimes, right? Is there a specific reason, or
we're both credited on all of our movies, pretty much?
I think. Well, the reason is that we both do everything.
Okay, that's what I figured. It didn't seem like there was a real delineation. I was just.
Right. It's like, you know, when we were initially making our first film, I think we were gonna be like, oh, Sophia's the producer, I'm the director. But then it was like the credit always went to Michael, and it's like, you know, he's maybe more outspoken than me online and stuff, and so like I was definitely being left behind, and whereas like I had done equal amount of work, you know, so we don't really like now at this point, if we are both doing everything, which we do, it just makes sense for it to be co-producer, co-director for us. And you know, he's like, Michael's more of a writer than I am. Like, I'm story ideas and I give my input, but like when it comes to actually physically writing a script, like I will just walk away. You know, like my brain isn't like that. You know, and then like I've obviously like focused on camera more. So there are like areas where we might take a credit that the other one doesn't get. But for producing and directing, I think generally, and like, you know, like when it comes to talking to actors about their specific emotion in a scene, like I think Michael is better at speaking to people than I am sometimes. So you know, he will go do that, you know, because I can be very blunt and like not that complimentary, and like it's just, you know, and all I want when I'm looking at the camera, I'm like, are you in the fucking frame? Like just stand there and be in the frame, please. You know, it's like, so I was very like, you know, crazy, and like whereas Michael can be like, you're doing great, here's what we need. You know? So like there are like, and that I think is what people think of as directing. Yeah. That specific moment, but that is such a small piece, I think, of directing. You know, like to me, it comes down to casting and like the whole.
And even if I'm having that conversation, that's in conjunction with your ideas and your thoughts.
Oh yeah.
It's not like just, but we kind of say, well, we if we had to do a rough delineation, it's like Sophia is more involved in pre-production. Right. I'm more involved in post-production. And then during
getting our input.
We are both involved in everything. So. Yeah. But during production, then I'm more dealing with like the actors and that kind of stuff, and you're more dealing with the technical elements of it. So that's sort of like if we had to vaguely delineate, that's but it's not. There's no like. That's not a hard line in any way.
Yeah, no, we're always getting each other's input on. Right. You know, do you like this costume? Do you like this location? Do you like this moment in the edit? Do you like the sound effect? Like it's just always it's a constant back and forth. And I think like we always talked about like. You know, it's so hard to make a movie that if you can have 2 brains work as one and be as invested as the other brain, like it's hugely like I don't think either of us at this level without money and support could do it without the other. You know, like if budget and producers and all that stuff, we could each individually go off on our own and do a movie, but at this level of $0 coming in, like we need the help. You know?
You know, it's funny you said, you know, it's kind of like, you know, 2 people sharing a brain. And that's actually how I've described you on set to other people sometimes. Because it's like you can hear like an inner monologue going on between them.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too, because like people think that we're fighting or that we bicker on set, but we're just so short with each other that like I think it comes off as anger sometimes. And it's really not, because we are moving on to the next technical problem like 1 second later. So it's not like we're ever mad or fighting, and but people are like, oh my god, they're gonna get divorced over this. Like this is not. It's really not. It's just like we're trying to work as fast as we possibly can and solve as many problems that are coming up like very fast. So it's just like we've gotten to the point where we don't need to coddle each other, and it's just like
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. On independent films in general, there just isn't a lot of time for coddling.
Yeah,
I mean, there's certain situations, especially with actors, where you have to a little, or even crew. But I don't know. I am often accused of being overly curt sometimes, and I'm just like, I just want to get done fast.
Yeah.
Like deliver the information as fast as you possibly can. I don't need to know the backstory.
Yeah,
Right.
That's always the thing. I'm like, you don't have to justify it. Like if you're gonna ask me you want to do something, just ask me if you want to do it. You don't have to justify it. I'll either say yes or no, and then let's move on, because we can't do that kind of stuff. This is the hardest. This movie was actually like one of the hardest to shoot. It was, I mean, all the convention stuff was just in 3 days, and that's all we shot with those guys. So it's very truncated for their part, their part of it. And we had no control over any situation there, so it was challenging. It was challenging to shoot.
What was that like? You just pretty much had to laugh them up and follow them around, or
we shot mostly 3 cameras and labs, and we had some boom running sometimes. Like I really wish we brought more crew. We brought like our friend Matt Stewart, who's another indie director. He's really awesome. He was on camera. You mostly like kind of shot the wide and ran sound, and then I was also another camera. So like it was and then like AJ, who's in the movie, like helped out behind the scenes a lot as well, because like we needed it.
And Neil was there.
And Neil was there.
Neil was like chasing down people to get releases, because I mean that's another thing. We're shooting at a convention, and like a million people are appearing everywhere.
And
so
they
we're
come
like
up to the table. We're like, Neil, get a release.
They're like if they're just background, like we had notes up that were like we're filming, like you're in this movie if you walk by, but if they're in it more than in any kind of substantial way, we just needed releases from as many people as possible. And so Neil
and I was like, and write down a description of what they're.
Well, no, he took pictures. I think you had them write their name on the back.
Pictures on their phone, I think.
And then we took pictures of them holding up the
oh, did he? Oh, good.
Some of them.
Hopefully, because I'm like, if somebody asks me later, I have no idea.
I was trying to write credits at the end, for like, the guy who came up with the blender to get signed. I'm like, who? I don't know who this is.
Yeah, so like going through the release.
I don't know what name this is. Like, looking on Facebook to see if the pictures look similar to the person and stuff. Yeah.
Right. So you guys are premiering what, next weekend at Fright Fest?
Yeah, it's Monday night, right? Yeah, it's a bank holiday weekend in England, so it's a holiday.
Monday the 29th.
Yeah.
It's like 4 o'clock or something like that at Fright Fest. Yeah, and we're very excited about that. Fright Fest has been on our list of festivals that we've wanted to go to for like since we started making films. We've always wanted to go to Fright, and we just haven't had the opportunity, and so. We're quite excited. We're going to the beginning. We're going to be there the whole festival.
Oh, that's great.
Try to check out a lot of other stuff that's there, and meet some people, and just have fun.
That's really cool. Dominique on here asked a question. I know the answer, but I figured I'll ask it anyway. I know the answer, but so how did you raise the money for this movie?
I mean.
We didn't.
There is no money for this movie. Credit. It's all card right now. We're hoping we can sell it to somebody for at least the amount that's sitting on our credit card.
Again, like the idea was like, okay, we've got a plan. We'll get this done in like 9 months, and so we'll be able to get it kind of fast track through and make our money back and like whatever. And it hasn't gone. I mean, now we've just been sitting on debt for a long time.
Right.
It was very inexpensively.
I mean, we had to pay for flights and all that stuff, so it does add up.
We paid people who are involved in it, who are performing in it, but not, it's not nobody made millions. And it was very small crew, and like we shot all the interview stuff and everything else was just the 2 of us shooting. The convention stuff, like we said, was really Matt was
our only
kind of the only other crew. And then Neil the producer, was involved. And then we had a couple of like kind of PAs who were just we're like, because we were traveling to North Carolina for the convention also. So it's like, we don't want to pay.
Who do we put up?
Yeah.
Like in retrospect, I wish I got another camera person and like a dedicated sound person, because like just corralling the situations was so difficult. Like that, you know, it would have been easier, but you know, that's another couple grand per person to put them up and pay them and house them. And so it's just, you know, we were trying to cut corners on that stuff. And like, it's fine. It came out fine, but like just the experience was so hectic.
Right. But we had a couple of wonderful guys, Jason Min and Jeff Ball, who were they didn't live there, but they drove up they were coming to the convention anyway. They wanted to be there, and so they were like, oh, we'd love to just help out on the movie, and we'd love to just do whatever we can. So they helped us, and they did things like drive the guys around when they needed to, and go like pick up cigarettes for them and stuff, like just because we don't want them to leave. You know, we were like, we need you to kind of be doing stuff like. You can't go to the store and get things. Like we'll send somebody out for you for that.
Right.
So
And
like that.
And you typically handle post on your stuff, right? You typically do the editing. I know you didn't on this. What was the thought process?
Yeah, so I usually do all the editing and sound. And on this I did do the sound. I did do the sound mix, which was a whole nother nightmare. We can talk about it after. But because we're so involved in the process of shooting this and everything, and it's so chaotic and there's so much of a mess of stuff, we thought like, well, we'd love to have somebody with kind of like fresh eyes, separated from the story, who wasn't there, who didn't have trauma from dealing with like a million crazy clowns and crowds and things. I mean, I will tell you, I was like,
the thing is, we met one clown and he was like really reasonable,
and he's in it the most.
And he's like, we're coming by, me and all my clown friends. I was like, great, let's
awesome.
film it, you know. And then it was total
trying to get mics on clowns and trying to get clowns to stay and clowns to, because we, again, we're trying to, when we need to film them, like if people are lining up to get signatures or something, we have to like pull them aside and be like, can we put a mic on you first? Like before you, like, it's fine for you to do this, but can we, so we're manipulating the situation. It's not happening in real time like the way that it would have happened if we weren't there. We have to pull them aside, put a mic on them, get release, do all that. Then we're like, okay, you can go to this table now and get a signature. And so, managing that is hard. The things with like the kids and the clowns and the, other stuff. So, and of course with kids, we have to get the parents' permission and all that. So, anyway, so we had a very we were traumatized. We had a very significant experience at the convention in many ways. We also had biases about like what we thought happened versus what, again, it's like the Rashomon. There's something on the cameras, right? Something was captured by the cameras. That may not be the same thing as what we experienced, like being there. And we may not have captured things well. I didn't even look at the footage. I did organize it a little bit because I was like, Aaron, you're never gonna find anything. But then we sent it to our friend Aaron Barocas, who we've done a couple films with. We did a short called Half Cocked with him that did really well in festivals, and right now we have a short with him called Sitting Duck that is currently on the festival circuit. So he is an editor. He's full. That's his
and he does
job.
A lot of like behind the scenes docs for movies.
He does
and stuff like that. So he has like a lot of like reality and documentary experience. And so we thought that was going to be really helpful for putting this story together. And it was a good decision.
Right. So so we kind of handed it off to him, and then he figured out like we had I wrote him out kind of like a what I called an editor's script at the time, which was kind of like, here's what I think is the kind of the story, the structure of the story here, based on what we shot, based on what we have. And then he took that and kind of assembled that together and made some adjustments where he thought it made sense, and tried to figure out, because you're trying to figure out pacing for this story too, right? It's like, it's like, how do you pace this? And so he would cut that, send us cuts, and we would give feedback and make adjustments. And like, it's weird. It's a hard story to tell, because like, we're telling the movie story and the guy's story. And at one point, like, the guys didn't even come into the movie for like 25 minutes. Like they weren't even introduced. And I'm like, we can't.
It was all about End Zone 2, which is great, because we do also need to, it's a not well.
I did really like that beginning section, like going over the End Zone stuff. But 20 minutes would have been crazy.
It was too much, right? So we had to like
intercut it a little bit better.
Yeah.
But there are things like, he at one point was like, you know, because there's this history of the drive-ins and everything with the end zone, and he was like, you know, it'd be great if we could find somebody that showed the movie, and we couldn't find like the original people. We found the son of somebody that worked at, you know, had a drive-in.
Yeah.
So like he had suggestions like that where it was like, go find a person that might have another relationship with this movie.
Yeah.
Or go find, like, try to find like the canisters, which we did.
Right. Every time Aaron sent us an email, we're like, we're gonna have more work. We're gonna have more work to do.
He had me chasing stuff, B-roll and stuff like that. It was just like, oh my god.
It was really helpful.
I was like, just sit on the person talking. They're fine. It's like, no, you're just
no, he was right on that though, and he did a really great job of.
We had a lot of suggestions like that, which, you know, in the end helped the movie a lot. Yeah.
Right. Were the animated sequences, was that intended from the get, or was that something that you developed later in post?
I think it was later. We were trying to get some courtroom sketches, not to spoil anything. We tried to get some courtroom sketches, and that wasn't going to happen for the ending. And so, like, some of that was animated at the end.
We kind of knew. Well, let me put it this way: we knew going in that we wanted to have some dynamics in style of the movie. Of the thing. You know, we didn't want it to just be like really straightforward. We didn't want it to be a straightforward kind of normal realist presentation. Right. So we kind of knew we were going to do some kinds of things that were maybe unconventional, and animation was always on the table as like one of those pieces, you know, one of those ideas. But then, you know, we didn't know until the movie was shaped, like where that would go or how it would be used, or you know, kind of who would be involved in that part of the story. So yeah, it was later.
Do you want to talk about the nuts and bolts? How did you get the animation done?
I mean, really, we just sent it.
I know, we just tired out.
I know. I was trying to get. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah. Well, there's a few different types.
Some of it was acquired. You know, some of it existed already, and like we acquired it, and then, you know, like you said, our friend.
Josh Stifter. Was, you know, somebody we knew. He's made a lot of cool movies,
and we've seen his animation work before.
We've seen his animation
it's
work.
Really cool.
He made a great movie called Greywood's Plot recently, and then he had done animation work. I saw a bunch of his own stuff, and then he did animation in the latest Troma movie, the Shakespeare Shitstorm. And it was funny because the New York Times reviewed the movie, and I think they like kind of didn't like the movie, but they're like, the animation in this is really great, like Josh Stifter's animation. And I was like, great, he's doing our stuff too. No, but he's a really nice dude, and so we really
harassed him basically because he was moving at the time to Atlanta, and then, you know, we're finishing this movie. Can you do this? Yeah,
he did great work. We didn't need a lot. I mean, it's not a huge part, but so we just, you know, we worked with him. We hired him to do some stuff. We did hire out, you know, anywhere we could hire out for, like, if we had to make stuff, we're like, we better just hire somebody to do this if we can. Just for time.
I did a lot.
We did a lot. We did a lot of
Photoshop.
Anywhere where we had to make like artwork or kind of like, you know, other B-roll stuff that had to be created rather than found and sourced or found. We did that. We dug through like archives of photos for photos that we needed. We dug through. I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot of.
Dominic had another question. This is kind of off topic, but what do you guys think of fan films? Would you ever consider doing a fan film? What's your thoughts on fan films?
You want me to talk, or you want to talk?
You can talk about
it. I appreciate fandom. I do, and I think, you know, it's great. Like, if people want to get together and celebrate something that they love, but fan films really don't interest us because it's just not our. I'd rather just create something new, and I'd rather create something new. If you, let's say you love, you know, I don't know, what's a, you know, Predator is a popular franchise right now. So let's with Prey and everything. If you love Predator, and you want to do something that's kind of an homage to that, I think create your own IP that's like sort of a similar idea, or like in the realm of that, or tells kind of the same type of story as that. And I think that's more exciting to me. Yeah. Because doing and
I think no matter what, you are like. I mean, I don't care about corporations, but you are stealing somebody's intellectual property. And if somebody like was like, I want to do the Tributes fan film, I'm just going to do it, I'd be a little annoyed, you know? Whereas, like, if you want to license it and talk to me about it, like, sure, you know, it'd be great. But like, to just go and do it, it is like a weird thing. And like, especially like when people raise money for it, like they raise like $100,000 to go do their Jason movie. It's like, well, somebody else owns that Jason property, and then you can't really do anything. Yeah. Like, I don't know. For us, we're more career oriented, where it's just like we want our own projects and like be able to sell it and be able to put it out and not get sued by anybody or cease and desisted. I will say we did make one fan film.
I was gonna say this.
Yeah. So
It's not a fan
It's
film.
not. It's a music video. Like
Wait, I think I might know this. Go ahead.
Yeah, my old band is called Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling, and we kind of like loosely made an album based on this old TV show called The Prisoner, which was a British show from the 60s. And the opening sequence is really fascinating because it kind of tells the entire backstory of the show, and then you get into the episode. And so it was about 2 minutes long, and so we're like, let's just shot for shot recreate that. And that was kind of like a popular thing at the time, like around 10 years ago, was like shot for shot recreations of things. And it ended up being really difficult and took us a year to make it because it was
2 years.
Yeah, because it was, British, and it had like a fancy car that like hardly exists in the US, but we found a collector, and like all this crazy. Like it took like a lot of effort. Again, like we were like, oh, we'll do this over the summer. And like, no, it took like 2 years. But it was a shot for, and it got us like a lot of press and like time, like big places. So like it worked out well for us, but it wasn't intended to make money. It was intended to promote my band, and like
it was also it
felt a little different than these fan films that are coming out.
It was more of like what I would call an homage to that, because it's a creation, based on that. And again, the band was sort of, it was sort of like an homage to
and it's like a show nobody like in the US like hardly knows,
Right.
Maybe a little bit more like around that same time they did do like a reboot remake of it with like Jim Caviezel or somebody.
Yeah,
he was terrible.
Oh yeah.
It was
I
like
never watched it.
But that was weird too, because like the band existed, and then like we were getting press about that, and I was like, okay.
But it celebrated. We wanted to celebrate the themes. I mean, it's like it's like, how do we take something like this?
It was just a show I loved, and I was like, I want to work with these themes and everything. Yeah.
So it was. I feel like it's a little more transformative because it's not like we're making a film, or if we made a TV series where we're like we're making The Prisoner episodes as a TV series, new episodes of it. That would be like the the fan film version. So the video idea is a little different. But in terms of film, I just don't. We're not really interested.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Do a real Friday, a real Halloween movie. Like,
yeah. Totally. Yeah, I guess my thought on it too is, as far as fan film go, I have no problem with them existing. But as far as a filmmaker, it is so hard to make a movie. And, it takes so much effort and so much time, and often our own money. Like I want at least the possibility to make that money back, or some of it. And granted, we might not anyway, but I want the possibility. It's like, I look at a fan film like it was almost like going to a casino to gamble, but with absolute 0% chance of hitting anything.
I think people think like it'll get them the attention to make something else, and I'm not sure that is a good line of thinking, as opposed to like doing something original that then might win the lottery, like you're saying,
I really do think like we've got so many ideas. We have 50 projects outlined and in development, and I don't know how many, so many. So it's not like there's no shortage. We're not sitting around like, oh, we need to come up with an idea. It's more like, what do we have the resources to actually make? And so to take those resources and be like, we're gonna make Friday the 13th movie, just feels like
that might get attention for a couple months, but
not the best for us.
I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
And it does feel weird to raise money based on somebody else's product.
That I agree. That's a little dicey. I hadn't even thought of it like that. But the crowdfunders, especially when they get big, that's a little weird. Geez. So I know it's early and it's pretty much what presents itself, but do you have ideas about what you'd like to do next? Or
I have an idea I've been kicking around for a while, and hopefully
you don't want to talk about it, right?
I don't think I want to talk about it because I think it's very
fun.
And I know when people are like, oh, it's an idea, but there's like
it's a very specific concept.
It's based on a specific thing, and we could talk offline about it, obviously. But but it's something that's more like, I'm gonna say it's more serious right now, but I'm sure it will be very funny also, because like, how can it not be? But it is more of like a serious like narrative drama, not drama, but like thriller.
I think it's more like a mystery, like a giallo-y mystery kind of thing,
of a murder from 30 years ago.
Right.
So
cool.
Basically,
it's like a forensics of a murder from the past, using
but it's very
related to film and film fandom
and
stuff.
Stuff like that. So
I see a little bit of giallo influence in some of your stuff, especially visually. Like, is that a big big touchstone for you?
Yeah, definitely like early 70s, like kind of like the B movies, like all the Hammer horror I love all the giallo stuff. I just love like a lot of the Italians, like for whatever reason, like even if they were trying to do something straightforward, they were always super arty, and it might just be like their locations that they have, but like, you know, they always lit it interestingly and shot really weirdly. And so I always take a lot of inspiration from the Giallo, especially. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thanks for taking the time, and I will talk to you again soon.